welcome back to the Neja Chuan podcast. This week we are continuing our look at Lo Deshu's interview by Ed Hines from 2005 in the Martial Arts Illustrated from the UK. In this one, Lo talks about the various aspects of Bagua fighting techniques, as well as the Izhong system as a whole and what it encompasses. There is an extra 15 minutes of this episode, at least 15 minutes, more like a half hour, I think, of this episode on the Patreon. So you want to check that out if you aren't a member already. In addition to that, there's also the third part of Jess's trip to Wudong Mountain, where we discuss the teacher Chen Li Sheng, who was the monk that he trained with while he was up there. So again, check it out. Hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves and be well.
Today's episode, we return to an interview with Lo Deshu from Martial Arts Illustrated, a British magazine published in 2005. Ed Hines is the interviewer, along with Tony Felix. And there, it's an introduction to Lo's teachings, but I think he covers some interesting stuff along the way. He's just giving sort of some short answers to basic questions, but there's some definitely some interesting tidbits here and there that sort of expose his way of going about this stuff. So the next question in the article, he was talking about I Ching and so on, but now he moves over to throwing. How is Bagua used for throwing? So Lo's reply is, our school comes from Cheng Tinghua. He was a famous wrestler before he learned Bagua. So his style has lots of throwing. Again, we always use circles. So we start the circle, but we put force out to stop the opponent from moving so that they fall. We make use of both centrifugal and centripetal force in circles. We use the opponent's movement to become our movement and increase it. Some throws we do close, others we do from furthers away. Often hitting is a part of the throwing. We use the same angles for hitting as for throwing. So those are just a few of Lo's ideas, and he's a real big fan of throws and has a whole bunch of very crafty and just excellent like foot sweeps and hooks and reaps, as well as just full on, over the hip type throws and arm locks and stuff. So he teaches a whole variety here, but I think what he's saying is like you use the circles and then you come to a sudden stop, and that's where the throw sort of takes place. So, it's a basic idea, but we use the same angles for hitting as for throwing. So like one of the things he'll do is you could try to hit somebody, but if they block, that strike continues in the same angle and momentum to create a throw. And that way you don't have to decide if you're trying to hit or throw. It sort of depends on what the opponent does. And that's that Bagua idea of just being able to constantly change in response to what your opponent does, that you don't have to necessarily plan it all out. You take a spontaneous movement that follows up what the other person does and ends up being the right thing, basically. So now he switches over. What's the relationship between Qigong and fighting? And that's interesting because, Qigong's a health practice, right? So he says, so Lo's perspective is this. Actually, we say that Qigong is about balancing the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. Qigong keeps the mind calm and the body healthy. When the mind is calm, you can react quicker. You can move faster. When the mind is calm, you can control the body better. After training, Qigong helps to rest and relax. It has two main effects, peace and stability. I say peace because it gives you a quietness that lets the brain organize its operation. This peace goes deeply into every part of your body. When I say stability, I'm talking about the unity of every part, which lets you develop your potential power. Your body and your mind both become more sensitive. You become more receptive, receiving signals clearly and quickly. And you also become more active, sending out your response more automatically. So that's that idea of internal martial arts, where you've incorporated Qigong and meditative stuff into your martial arts. And people, this is something we've been talking about since day one on here. It's like, well, why would I waste my time meditating when I want to do martial arts? Well, the idea is you calm your mind, you connect your nervous system, you help unify yourself. So it gives you that. It may not make you a mystical master, but it like gives your mind a little bit of calmness and quietness, and gives you that extra ability to react a little faster receive the signals more clearly and quickly, become more active, sending out your response more automatically. It's like that was the genius of internal martial arts, and every different style has their different way of doing it. But it's not that's going to make you a sage necessarily. It's just that they stripped out these ideas and added them to martial arts to make it better. That's the whole point.
Well, it's conditioning, right? I mean, it's like one
It's a
way to
type
do.
of conditioning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, one way to do it is you can lift weights and run and jump and, hit things and bang your arms on stuff. Another way to do it is through qigong and negong and practicing things that um goes kind of back to the pre-heaven, post-heaven thing, right? You're not
Mm.
trying to add on top of your existing energy. You're trying to take your existing energy and have it work better, right?
Mm.
So this is the idea, for example, that in just a comparison to most Western things, the idea is to get your heart rate up, and that pumps your blood faster, right? In Negong, you don't get your heart pumping faster. You relax and open the blood vessels so more blood moves through your veins and your blood vessels, but your heart's not working any harder, right? So you're
Sure.
not putting more pressure on your internal organs, but you're getting more flow out to your extremities and to your organs and stuff. So it uses different uh mechanisms to
Mm.
sort of achieve the same result, right?
Right. And
Instead
that,
of
yeah.
instead of lifting weights and strengthening your muscles, you open and close your joints and stretch your ligaments. Right? It's like so you do a different action that actually kind of looks a lot of times looks similar, but it engages a thing inside of your body, not just
Right.
you know your external structure.
So then he brings up the idea of what's the connection between Xinqian and Houtian, pre-heaven and post-heaven. And that's something we've been covering here for quite a while as well, and especially comes up in Gao style Bagua.
Yeah.
Um, and so, as Lo explains, the idea of Xinqian is before heaven. In our system, that's the circle walking and forms on the circle. Houtian means after heaven. And in our system, it's the 64 straight line techniques. However, in Chinese thinking, Xinqian is deeper than Houtian. So Xinqian trains the quality of body movement, the important directions and changes of directions. It follows the principles of natural movement of the universe. Whereas Houtian trains techniques, it trains power. It follows the patterns of human behavior. We say that Xinqian is strategy and Houtian is application. So that's sort of the martial arts version of these cosmological concepts that can be applied to all kinds of stuff in Chinese traditional thinking in terms of medicine or philosophy. You can use them as well, but in the Scout style martial arts, I like how he puts it. The circle forms are the strategy, and the straight line forms, the Hotian's application. So you sort of get your big ideas off the circle, which inform your overall movement, and then you get down to specifics in the Hotian straight line forms. That's something that he spoke on the other article as well.
Well, it's that systematic breakdown of each of the circle forms, right? So in a pure pre-heaven system, you still have to take apart the circle form and do the
Mm,
applications as essentially single
right.
application.
And that would be the Hotian side of it, right?
Right. I mean, so it's like you're just they just have a in the post heaven stuff, it's like they just have a systematic way of
Right,
doing
right,
that rather than
right,
doing it sort of organically
right. Gao
and
style has these 64 formalized forms for unpacking the circles. Whereas in every Bagua system, you got to unpack the circles. You got to take every little movement from the circle forms and figure out how to apply them one way or the other. And so, if the 64 straight line forms give you some nice options and ideas for
yeah,
doing that.
they approach it, I think, more like Tai Chi in a sense, where it's like you're doing a sequence of movements, but you can clearly see how that sequence of movements is an application.
Like
Where
ward
with
off and roll back in Tai
right,
Chi.
where the circle forms, it's very hard to see, what.
Somewhat abstract, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't. a one-to-one kind of technique thing where you can see, oh,
No.
that's a strike and that's a
Right.
hit and that's a kick and that's a block. It's all kind of mushed into one thing. And
Right. So fluid and
yeah,
flexible and
which is
stuff
why
that,
it looks so cool. I mean, I think
yeah.
that's part of what the attraction to bogwhite is for a lot of people is I think that you don't see the breaks in a sense, right? And there's something fluid about that. And in a sense, the application the learning of the application requires those breaks. You still have to
Yeah.
break things down so you
Right.
get this plus that equals this, and if they do that you do this, and if they and it's just kind of that sort of that's the technical knowledge that you would learn in any martial art, right? Like,
Yeah. So the next topic is, does Bagua use kicking? And hey, good question. It's not well known for kicks the way, karate or taekwondo or something with the big high kicks, but with all that walking, it's got to be leg focused. So here's Lowe's answer. The walking training is to help develop balance for kicking. Every step is a kick. Most of our footwork movement is on one leg. It's all kicking. Kobu, the hooking step, is done high as a roundhouse kick. Baibu, the swinging step, done high as a crescent kick. Also, 8 of the 64 forms are kicking forms. But it's not just kicking, it's also stamping, sweeping, tripping. In Bagua, we say that you must have 3 hands. This is so that you can use one of your feet as a hand. So these are some of Lowe's favorite
well, I
quotations.
like that
So
he uses the same step as a kick, kick as a step.
everybody uses
That's
that one. I think my Dong Ai Chuan must have said that. That's the key to the circle walking. That's
that's the
the,
biggest principle you have to
yeah,
get is that it's not just walking, it's every time your foot goes out, it's a strike with your foot or your hand, right? It's like it's not it's not one or the other, it's either or. And that's kind of like what he's saying. It's like your feet become your hands and your hands become your feet. And it's all,
absolutely. Absolutely. And so when you took at a circle walking session where you could be stepping a few hundred times in your practice that day, each one of those is a kick. Each one of those should have all the different connectionness and alignments and balance that you're going to need to perform kicking. So he says yeah, that's what he says. Like the whole point of walking is to help develop balance for kicking so that you can use that leg in so many different ways. And then his quote of you need to have 3 hands. That's one he likes to use a lot of like using one of your legs should have all the same precision and care and ease of movement as a separate hand, ideally. So you have 3 different, that gives you a nice advantage of having 2 hands plus this additional hand that you can use. Obviously, you can't pick things up with your toes the same way, but I like the idea. It just gives that, the way he can move that extra leg is ridiculously effective.
so one of the things Bruce gave us as an assignment was writing your name with your toes. So
Like
you
we
get
put a pencil in there.
Yeah, so you put a pencil between your big toe and the next one, and you try to write cursive, or you can do it without. I mean, just do it in the air, but it's like try to do cursive writing with your feet,
Uh-huh.
basically. Yeah.
And I like how he uses, Kobu, the round kick, Baibu as a crescent kick or stomp kick. It's pretty easy to see that those are there. And when you're walking supports that. When you know that, then as you walk, it gives you a reason behind why you don't just sort of stumble forward in Bagua, but each step is a deliberate, careful step. Repeat that thousands of times, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times can be very effective for making your legs
Yeah, and
more,
it sort of reminds you not to lunge forward too, right? Like it keeps that little part of your, awareness on, okay, I have to keep my front foot empty. So if I want to kick with it or my back,
right. As it extends, it doesn't have any weight until it touches.
right.
They call it a swing step sometimes to give that sense of there's momentum behind each step. You don't just sort of flop onto it. Each step could potentially impact something if it happened to be in the way.
Yeah, it's like you're testing the ice before you put your foot down. So, the part of that thing of um It's like if your foot's going out and you decide at right at the last second that you want it to become a kick, right? You don't lunge or lurch backwards or
Right.
forwards.
And you don't have to
You're
pull the
able.
step back or
Yeah,
whatever. It
exactly. It just
it
comes
happens.
out of the step.
So here's another question. Why is single palm change important? That reminds me of like when I would do my Ne Jia Chun book interviews. That would be the kind of leading question that you
Yeah,
throw
these
out
are
there.
definitely the like um questions I won't say.
Fishing expedition.
Well, I would say someone who hasn't done Bagua would ask, right? You're trying to
Right.
sort of probe what is this stuff all about, rather
Yeah, you're
than
trying to
thinking,
give the audience, you may already know, but you're trying to just get the
right.
person talking in a way that will
And
lead them down the road that you want them to go down.
that's where you can sort of see oh, right, this was written 25 years ago, kind of.
Right. It still remains an important topic. It
Yes.
says single palm change is very clever. It has all the important directions inside it. Everything in our system, the eight palm changes and the 64 forms come from single palm change. When you understand how they are all the same, changing techniques is easy. So a short answer, but in Bagua, there's always a question of, or the point being, single palm change contains multitudes. So every Bagua school agrees single palm change is the seed from which all their other forms grow out of. So again, you have to go through that Xintian Hotian process of the principle and the strategy, and then the specific applications, the thousands of applications, and then returning back to that basic thing. So it's said that if as long as you have single palm change, you can recreate all the forms of Bagua at any time at that point. You just have to dig deep enough into it and take out all the minute bits from it.
It gives you all the principle,
Principles.
not all the technique.
So he says the next question is: does Bagua Zhang really only use palm strikes? Lo says, Zhang in Chinese means palm. It also means martial art. It's like Tren, which means fist, but it also means martial art. So Bagua Zhang uses more than the palm, just like Taiji Chuan uses more than the closed fist. In internal martial arts, we say the fist is not a fist, the whole body is a fist. You have to learn to strike with all parts of your body. So palm means your whole body. You can use every part, even if you spit in their face. So I guess that's a new application of palm. But yeah, I mean, again, this is another big topic that we're always harping on is like you swing with a palm attack in Bagua, but if the palm gets deflected, then you just shift to your forearm. And if that gets deflected, you use your elbow. Like any different part of what you're swinging can do the same amount of damage. You don't have to aim it with the tiniest little bit like you might in a more point striking art. This is more of a those sweeping movements of the body make it possible to hit with a bunch of different surfaces. So there's Lowe's definitely confirming that concept here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also just kind of to distinguish it
Hmm.
stylistically from other, you know, fist arts, right? Like, it implies a little more than
Are there any
punch.
other martial arts that end with Jong like that? Is there? I think Pigua Jong, Baji and
Not
Pigua.
many. Yeah, I mean,
No, I mean
most
it's
things are fist or
yeah.
something like that.
That's a little bit of a marketing position for Bagua. But I mean, you
Well,
do walk around with the palm out a lot,
I
so
was
it
gonna say
definitely
most
makes
martial
sense.
arts don't have that kind of emphasis on the palm either. So, I mean, I
It's
think that's
true. It's a worthy,
most things are knuckles and fists and elbows and, knees and hard things.
yeah.
So.
That Bagua palm focus is definitely, and it's characteristic of the way the art is used. The body slapping, sweeping palm strikes lend themselves, especially to the throws of Cheng Tinghua style. You want to have that flexibility and sensitivity of a palm rather than blasting your way through with your fists like you might with Shaolin or something. It speaks to the way Bagua has that extra sort of the extra dependence on angles and circles and directional changes that that fists aren't necessarily indicative of, if you know what I mean. So palm really does suit the art in that
Well,
level.
yeah, and the gripping aspect of it, sort of the controlling, sticking stuff
Mm,
is really,
the sticking, the palm
um,
allows you to stick more than you would with a fist, probably.
yeah, I think that's probably the most like in terms of the connotation of the name. I think what it's referring to is that you're not just hitting the thing,
A
like
little
an
more to
impact
it.
thing, that there's a lot of, sticking, and kind of like the palms are these big surfaces that you're using rather than, little pointy things that you're hitting with.
Yeah, and use the palms to lead the other person as much as you use it to strike them. You try to set them up in a worse position using the palms. Whereas the fist, that's harder. It's like a pool balls that crashing into each other. Whereas the palms, you stick and move and slide and move with them sometimes and draw them in and improve your angle and make theirs worse, kind of. So there's a sophistication about it that all the internal martial arts do have a sophistication about them that sets them apart. It doesn't always work. I mean, if you're too sophisticated and someone's stronger will beat you up and you can't apply your sophistication. So like you have to have the same basic level as any external martial art, but then you have to add on all those internal skills as well. So it's not like it's a shortcut necessarily. I think,
No, not at all.
it's more like you lift the ceiling on your abilities. So like Dong Hai Chun students might all be really great, but he wanted to try and raise the ceiling and allow them to advance higher than they could have in their whatever they started out with to give them the ability to take it further, basically. So the next question, and this is going beyond a little bit the most beginner questions. I mean, this is a British martial arts mag that's mostly about knife fighting,
Right,
MMA,
right, right.
karate, like, but each article is goes in gives you something that practitioners of that art would like. So it's a pretty good mag overall. He says, "What's the relationship between the eight mother palms, the linking connected palms, and the swimming body palms?" And this is what Dan Miller had talked about in the Bagua Journal ones we'd been talking about previously, about sort of those three stages of training. So Lo says this: in our school, we start with fixed step training that we quickly link into forms. It is the most basic level of training. It combines the forms with the intention. When the student understands the linked forms, then they can move more smoothly and freely. This is our swimming body. The forms are not fixed in swimming body palm. There aren't limits or rules. You follow the universal circle. Whereas the eight mother palms we use for training Shen, spirit, and for deepening the power in the body. Those he's calling those the circle walking, holding the static palms.
Mm.
Though that's what you use for training the spirit and deepening power in the body. The linking palms and the mother palms help you help your body become unified. In many schools, they use the mother palms as basic training. In our school, we say that if you don't have a strong foundation, then you can't really benefit from them. So that's interesting. So he puts the holding postures of the palms at the end of the training. That's where you train the spiritual side of it. Whereas you've got to have all the palm changes and circling and connected and swimming before you go on to holding the postures. That's kind of the reverse of a lot of schools. That's interesting.
It is, yeah.
And wait to the meditative stuff till you've actually got some stability and some skill and some postural connections, and then that stuff will make more sense. Whereas if you start off just holding the postures, you're going, geez, what does this have to do with martial arts? I mean, my arms are burning holding these postures, which in long runs are very good for you, but it may not make a whole lot of sense at first. And so you might be just like, this isn't ever gonna work. I quit.
Yeah, I mean, I think this mostly depends on your audience, right? Like, you got a bunch of young guys that want to do martial arts, making them walk circles for a bunch, with their arms up in
Right.
the
Your
air.
2 hours of circles.
They probably won't come back. You got a bunch of dudes in their 50s and 60s and a few old ladies. Maybe don't start by smacking them in the head,
Right. Got
Like,
to know
so
your audience a little
it
bit.
just, some of it is like read the room a little bit. But I also think, again, it just depends on your general interest is, are you doing it more as a martial thing, more as a health thing, or more as a, as a meditation thing, and that's just kind of like depends on the
Yeah.
person, I think.
Well, when we were in Beijing earlier this year and we're training with Hanyan Wu, Liu Jingru's student, he had us do those mother palms first before teaching single palm chain. So he taught us a little circle walking, but then he had us holding those postures, pressing down, the big rock flies, and then
Mhm.
tiger opens its mouth, lion opens its mouth. But so that's the usual way of going about things. You got to earn your stripes a little bit and put in some work
That,
around holding those postures before you
that's
get the palm
definitely the
changes.
more, quote unquote traditional way of doing it
Yeah,
in
it seems
Bagua
like it.
is
Yeah.
well, most like Yin Fu, they also do it where you usually, hold the postures first. And most chanting Hua things at least start with a couple of postures. It's not, they may not
Yeah.
do a whole series of them, but
Well, it gives you something to do while you're doing that footwork and you're getting your
yeah.
stepping going.
And I think, uh, yeah, again, I mean, it's about sort of where, what path you're going to take the people on, kind of. And a lot of that depends on what their expectations are and what your skill set is. I mean, if you're not a fighter, you probably shouldn't try to teach people martial arts.
Be realistic, I think is the plan. One thing I like he says is about following the universal circle. So that's that swimming body. I mean, the way he's portraying it is you're going pretty freestyle at that point. I mean, I remember in classes he would encourage you to like connect two, so like do fifth palm change and sixth palm change one after the like together, make them one long palm change or something like that, or mix and match them a little bit. But he never really like teach spontaneous anything goes type of movements. I don't think is. But in here he's saying, hey, you get in there and just sort of move smoothly, freely, and the forms are not fixed at that point.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I think that's where the forms become more of a suggestion, and you're following, it's like music or something. You're following the general chord progression, but you're adding and things and improvising things because you have that ability basically, and
yeah.
you're able to weave in and out of sort of the written notes and kind of find spaces where you can do things that aren't necessarily, again, part of what you learned in the forms, but yeah, this is that sort of bagua. It becomes like jazz, and you're just sort of riffing and playing things, and seeing where it takes you.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's that swimming body palm that all Bagua practitioners aspire to reach and maintain, get to that spontaneous smoothness where everything just effortlessly links together.
Well,
And
and that's why, like, usually the videos of older masters,
mm,
guys in their 70s and 80s, even in their 90s, their forms don't look like
they're not super precise, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
they don't look like the students, where everything is crisp and clear. There's a certain sort of,
yeah, yeah,
like, hey, very like casual and yet authoritative is kind of the
yeah,
best way
yeah.
I can put it. It's
No,
like,
you're right. I think of like old masters like Xie Pei Qi or Liu Hengjie or Zubao Zen, where they're whipping around that, or like the Wang Shujin one that sort of
mhm.
seems sped up, where he's
That's
just
the
twisting and
most
turning and
probably,
spinning,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. But
like just let it flow. Got to at some point.
yeah.
So now he says, what about practice speed?
Mm.
Which is people will ask about that for sure. So he says, sometimes you practice slow, sometimes you practice fast. For training the body coordination, it's best to practice slower, and for calming the mind. Slow or fast, the important thing is to harmonize the natural body rhythm. And I think most Bagua schools tend to just go at normal speed. You'll go slow when you're learning a new move or putting together a form. But then when you practice, you pretty much generally keep the same speed. And that's my experience in Lowe's classes. But one thing that stands out when I think about this is how Kumar would often make us double your speed and then double your speed, then double your speed to really test yourself, especially on the meditative training to hold everything together. The faster you go, it really stresses your system. And most schools that I've been to don't really do that as a standard activity. You might do it just to test yourself once in a while, but like the way he would teach, oftentimes he'd be making us go way faster than we wanted to. And there's something to be gained from that.
Well, I mean, yeah, in a sense, that's shake up the nervous system a little bit so that
Yeah.
you have something to calm down, access to that stuff. Um,
Make stuff boil up on the meditative level or the
which,
physical level. Your system starts to shake if you go too
well,
fast. So just to wrap things up, he gives a breakdown of the Yizong school and what it contains. So he says the Yizong school contains many things: circle walking, palm changes, straight line forms, partner exercises, applications, qigong, neigong, meditation, power training, and weapons. Not only that, it includes Xingyi and Taiji in addition to Bagua.
right.
So again, he's the one of the things we kept bringing up about the Yizong system. It's incredibly comprehensive, and if anything, too comprehensive because there's just so many sets of exercises, solo exercises, two-person drills and exercises and techniques and forms. You got two sets of palm changes, pretty much 10 each, and yeah, just you keep piling it on, and that's one way to do it. Some schools are completists like that. Other schools have it distilled down to just a few forms that contain everything within them. And one will work better for one person than another. I don't think either way is superior.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
if you want it all, Yizong's got it all.
it's nice to have access to it all,
Mm-hmm.
but the reality is most people aren't going to have time to practice that much. So
Uh-uh. No
even
way in
if you
hell.
learn, even if you learn the whole thing, you're probably still going to
No way.
end up with just a few things that you like in order
Yeah.
to, I mean, I know way more things than I practice on a daily basis. It's like
Right.
it's impossible to do it all. So you, again, this is where I think what ends up happening is you fold it into stuff, right? So you start to
Mm.
multi-layer things and you start
Yeah.
to essentially do your qigong and your meditation in your tai chi or your bagua.
Totally.
It saves you a
Yeah.
bunch of time and like you can go further into your art that way. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of
And
the
I like to break it up too. Like I'll do one of the straight line sets for a couple months, then go into a different one or do the singing animals for a while. Or, I like to rotate. It
sure.
keeps it fresh. So give me a couple months on each different set and
Oh yeah, that's why when
decades go by.
people ask me what I practice, I'm like, well, we like for the last couple months it's been this, but it's probably
Right.
gonna be something different if you ask me in 2 months. It's
Right.
gonna
It's
be
not
it's
just
not
one
gonna be
thing
the
you do
same
forever.
thing.
Yeah. You gotta
So
keep it interesting
again, I
and
mean, yeah, I think the main thing is that whatever the practice is, it's reinforcing those basic principles that you learn and that you're kind of keeping the signal going that you're not getting rusty essentially. As long as you do that, I don't think, the particulars of the forms make that much of a difference.
so we come to the final section here where Lo speaks about his personal philosophy. The question is, what is a teacher's responsibility?
Mm.
Lo says, in our school, the teacher's responsibility is to teach and the student's responsibility is to practice.
So there it is.
There you go. And it's surprising how difficult that
Yeah, it's
that
hard to
sounds like a
do.
simple thing, but it
Right.
turns out to be harder than you'd expect. Because like, we have students in school, brothers who've been around a long time, but like they only practice during class, so they don't make any improvement in between each class. So like that, it just slows you down so much if you don't take the time to practice on your own. You're not really, and not have to practice a ton, but it's almost mental. If you do a little bit each
Well,
day, it adds up. So he says the teacher also has a responsibility to be honest, to research and train honestly. That way, the teacher can feel happy to share what he has learned and won't need to hide, make up things, or lie. Then there you go. There are teachers who maybe started teaching a little too soon or got a lot of positive feedback, people worshiping them and telling them how great they were too early on. So now they feel like if they ever lose a sparring match, that'll ruin everything. So they can't afford to go outside their comfort zone. That's dangerous. If you get too many accolades that are undeserved, you start believing your own hype, then
yeah. I mean, it really comes down to being able to say, I don't know. That a lot of teachers when asked a question that they don't know the answer to, rather than say, I don't know,
That's a hard thing to say.
they they pontificate, and
Uh-huh.
it's like that might actually sometimes end up with the right answer, right? I mean, you might be
And you could
able
give
to,
your shot at it. There's nothing
yeah,
wrong with
and
that.
that's as long as you say that that's what you're doing,
Yeah,
I think it's fine. As long as you say, I don't know, but I think it's this.
right. So he wraps up with this. Martial arts is a treasure, a valuable collection of knowledge. If we're lucky enough to get some of this treasure, we must research to find out better training ways and teaching methods to help pass on the treasure to others. Personally, I also feel we can use the ideas of yin and yang to find balance in life, and we can look at the Bagua changes to help us figure out human life. And of course, the most important things of all are drinking, smoking, and watching Discovery Channel on TV.
That's really funny.
So he
Uh,
he's like you were saying about realistic. Like, yes, there's much to learn, and at the same time, enjoying life is also of equal importance.
yeah, I mean, I think the whatever internal art you're doing, the main purpose of it should be to enhance your enjoyment of life, right? Like, so if whatever that means for you, if it means you get to practice martial arts 12 hours a day and do nothing else, great. If it means you get to practice martial arts 1 hour a day and raise a family and go to work, also great, but it gives you that sort of freedom to say, okay, this is something I do. It's not who I am, and I think that's
Yeah.
an important
And
piece.
it's a mix of both. It's like it is a way of life because there's so much of it that is in your heart too,
Sure.
but also it enhances the regular life that you have. So like there's the image of I have to become a monk and train 12
Yeah.
hours a day, otherwise I quit. Like, nah, you can this scales, it can
Yeah,
fit your life in so many different ways. And that's I think Lowe is a perfect example of that. And if again, like I've said in the last one, if you get a chance to come to his class, if he's doing his travels and coming to your country, make the effort because man, the guy really is inspiring and just has such a great vibe about him that it's definitely well worth making the time and effort to go find him.
for sure. All right.
Right on.
Sounds good, man.
Well, that's it for now. See you next time.
All right. Until next time. Hey, folks, just a reminder if you want to hear the bonus content as well as the extra episode for this week, you can head over to the Patreon. It's $5 a month or $10 a month gives you the entire archive. All right. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves and be well.